Today's story isn't about headlines. It's about power, oil, and a country brought to its knees. Venezuela. This isn't just a political analysis. It's a human story about how global power plays can devastate millions of lives. So, let's go back a little. America and Venezuela weren't always enemies. In fact, for a long time, they were strong trade partners. Think of it as a simple, profitable relationship. Venezuela sold its oil, and America, the world's biggest consumer, bought it. It was a smooth operation, beneficial for both sides. The money flowed, and everything seemed stable. But then, the ground shifted. Power changed hands in Venezuela. A new kind of leadership rose, led by a figure named Hugo Chavez. He, and later his successor, Nicolás Maduro, said something that would echo across the world and shake the foundations of their relationship with the United States. That one dangerous line was, "We will control our own oil." Now, why is that so significant? Because Venezuela isn't just another country with oil. It has the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet. Let that sink in. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than anyone. And in our modern world, whoever controls oil controls a massive lever of global power. Chavez and then Maduro began to make good on that promise. They started nationalizing the oil industry, meaning the state, not foreign corporations, would reap the primary benefits. They forged new alliances, making deals with America's geopolitical rivals like Russia and China. For the United States, this was more than just an economic inconvenience. It was a direct challenge to its influence in its own backyard, Latin America. And that's when America got very, very uncomfortable. Because in the game of global superpowers, losing influence can be far worse than losing money. The narrative began to change. Suddenly, the focus shifted from trade to accusations. America accused President Maduro of widespread corruption, of drug trafficking, of systematically destroying democracy. These weren't quiet whispers. These were global announcements. Charges were filed, and a massive international campaign was launched to paint Maduro as a villain. But here's a crucial detail you have to remember. Despite all these serious accusations, America never sent troops to arrest Venezuela's president. There was no invasion. There was no direct, declared war. Instead, America unsheathed a different kind of weapon, a modern weapon, one that can be more devastating than bombs and bullets. That weapon is sanctions. The word sanctions sounds almost clinical, doesn't it? Like a penalty. In a game, but in reality, economic sanctions are a form of warfare. They are designed to choke a country's economy to death. They block the country's ability to trade on the international market. They freeze assets, making it impossible for the government to access its own money. They block vital imports, and that includes not just luxury goods, but medicine and food. This is exactly what happened to Venezuela. The sanctions hit, and the economy began to collapse. The currency, the bolivar, went into a freefall, losing its value almost overnight. People who had worked their whole lives and saved money found their life savings were now worthless pieces of paper. Imagine going to the store and needing a backpack full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. The consequences were catastrophic. Hospitals, cut off from international supply chains, ran out of basic medicines. People with chronic illnesses like diabetes or heart conditions couldn't get the treatments they needed to survive. Food became a luxury. Shelves in supermarkets went bare. Parents struggled, and often failed, to feed their children. The human cost was immense. Faced with this desperate situation, millions of Venezuelans made the heartbreaking choice to leave their country. They became refugees, walking for hundreds, even thousands of miles across borders, leaving their homes, their families, and their entire lives behind. This wasn't a natural disaster. This was a man-made crisis. From Washington, the message was that this was maximum pressure designed to restore democracy. But on the ground, the people of Venezuela were the ones paying the ultimate price. They were caught in the crossfire of a geopolitical battle. While the sanctions were squeezing the life out of the country, America was also playing another card. They actively supported opposition leaders in Venezuela. They officially recognized an alternative president, Juan Guaido, and encouraged other nations to do the same. They pushed relentlessly for regime change. The message couldn't have been clearer. Get rid of Maduro, install a government that is friendly to American interests, and the pain will stop. The underlying goal was to restore the old order, to bring Venezuela's vast oil reserves back under a sphere of influence friendly to the West. If this story sounds familiar, it's because it is. This is a pattern we've seen play out time and time again throughout history. Look at Iran in the 1950s, or Iraq, or Libya. When a nation dares to control its own natural resources and says no to American foreign policy dominance, it often finds itself it becomes a problem that needs to be solved. The United States often frames these interventions in the language of human rights and democracy, but the reality is often far more complicated. In Venezuela's case, the sanctions arguably created a far greater humanitarian crisis than the one they were supposedly trying to fix. The sanctions killed more hope, more dreams, and more people than bullets ever did. Now, let's be clear. Was the Venezuelan government under Maduro perfect? Absolutely not. Was there real corruption? Yes, without a doubt. Were there serious issues with democratic processes? Yes. But the critical question we must ask is this: was the international assault on Venezuela really about democracy? Or was it fundamentally about oil, control, and global power? Because true efforts to promote democracy don't involve starving children. Geopolitics. So where does that leave Venezuela today? The country is still struggling to recover, but something interesting is happening. The sanctions, once ironclad, are slowly being eased. Oil deals, once forbidden, are cautiously returning. And why is that happening now? Because global circumstances have changed. The war in Ukraine has disrupted energy markets, and the world needs oil again. And just like that, old enemies become new negotiating partners. This brings us to the most important lesson of this entire story. In the world of global politics, there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. There are only permanent interests. And for Venezuela, the country and its people were never the real enemy. The oil beneath their soil was the real target. If you want to understand the world we live in, you have to look beyond the screaming headlines and the simple narratives of good versus evil. You have to follow the money, follow the resources, and follow the power. If you want more stories like this, stories that peel back the layers and show you how power really works behind the curtain of politics, then stay curious. Follow along for more, because the truth is never as simple as they want you to believe. Thanks for watching.